I was married for about 4.5 years. I could not continue with a person who would not serve the God whom I serve. So I decided to part ways and get divorced. Hello, my name is Buhle and I am here to share with you my goal. I had already been in the church for many years and had already been converted many years. I had been an assistant for about 11 years before I came to do the work of God on the altar. My call was slightly different. I was in a taxi on my way from work, going back home, and I had been thinking about the work of God. It had been on my mind, and for me it was different because I didn't start to demonize or serving God in other ways. I understood that serving God, you can't put it off and on, it's a lifestyle. So I could serve God in any way, and that was my purpose. That was my aim, to serve God in the way that I thought I should serve God. And that was to take care of my family, to build a career and start my own family, and to be able to take care of my parents when they are elderly, specifically my mom. And when I was in the taxi, God spoke to me clearly and said, "But this is not what I have called you to do. I have called you to serve me on the altar 100%, to go where I will send you." Of trusting God. It was scary, of course. You don't know how your life is going to be. But I looked out of the window and I spoke to God and I said, "God, yes, I will do as you will. I will serve you on the altar." And that was when my decision was made to serve on the altar. I did not know what was going to happen next, what I would need to do next. I just knew that God would direct my steps because He's the one who's leading me to this. So He would direct my steps every step of the way. I just needed to say yes all the time and to say, "Let your will be done" all the time. And some years later, I met my then husband and we got married. I was married for about 4.5 years. And after 4.5 years, he betrayed God. First and foremost, he betrayed the altar and he turned away basically from God. And I could not continue with a person who would not serve the God whom I serve. So I decided to part ways and get divorced. This was very difficult for me because I didn't believe, and I still don't believe, that divorce is always the solution. For me, I knew that I had to weigh, is it going to be God or is it going to be my relationship? And I chose God. I chose to continue to serving God. And that also helped me to keep going and to submit to Him. So I remained doing the work of God on the altar, and it was not easy. I smile today because God was with me every step of the way, but it was not an easy journey. It was very difficult, but God helped me heal. And in the healing process, He asked me to do things that were difficult as well, things that I did not want to do, things that made me confront myself and confront the things that were happening inside of me. So one of the things that He asked me was to go to the therapy of love. I didn't want to. I even said, "God, no, I don't want to attend the therapy of love right now." But I obeyed. God doesn't even insist. He just says, "Do it." And it's really up to us to obey Him or not. And I obeyed. I went to the therapy of love, which was really difficult because they're praying for the love life. And I'm there in that situation now. But it was amazing how God used those moments of me going to the therapy of love for Him to heal me inside. I can't even describe the way that God used the therapy to heal me, because He began to help me overcome the battles that I was facing inside of me. I kept on continuing attending the therapy of love, and I continued to ask God what His will was for my life. I didn't just assume that, okay, now I'm going to do this, my next steps are this, because when this thing happens, when something like this happens in your life, it's like the earth moves beneath your feet. You don't know what to do, which direction to take. So I waited for him. Instead of relying on my own intelligence, I waited for God to tell me what it is I need to do in order for me to move forward. God answered me on one Sunday, and he showed me that his will for me is to continue to do the work of God. Because at that time, there was a lot of voices, especially for my family. My family thought, well, they were not supportive of my first decision to come to do the work of God. And the second time, they were expecting for me to come back home. They were very excited for me to come back home. So I trusted God and I stayed. I continued to do the work of God happily. I was happily doing the work of God. And surprisingly, one day, I met my husband. It was for me a great surprise because I was not praying to get married anytime soon. I was not expecting to meet anyone anytime soon. It was not even a thought for me. But it was not easy in the beginning, in a sense, for me. It was not something that I expected to happen. I even prayed for him to find a wife because I knew that he had lost his wife. His wife passed away. And I prayed for God because he was a man of God, a God-fearing man. Even when I spoke to him, I still prayed for him. The first week, I still asked God, please help him find a good wife. He's a good man and he needs a helper by his side. And God said, you're that wife for him. I'm very happily married to a man who fears God, a man who honors God. It is in him. It's not something he puts on and off at times, but it is who he is, and we are happily married. I remembered a prayer that I made to God before even my first marriage was, I wanted to have a marriage and a life that honored God the way God had planned it. And I had seen people within my family who didn't have that life. And what I read in his word and what I saw within the church, I wanted a marriage that honored God. And my first marriage, I didn't have that. And in my second marriage, God reminded me and he showed me that everything works together for the good of those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. Now he has shown me that I've answered the request that you had in the beginning. This is my will for marriage. This is how marriage should be, with a man who fears him, who doesn't fear him only when he's serving at a specific place, but who fears him in every way, who is a man of God. Now we're happily married, and the message that I leave with you is focus on God. Hard times will come to anyone. Remember that God permits those moments, and when he permits those moments, they are for our good. Even when we don't understand, just take every day as it comes, one step at a time. Submit, be faithful, trust every day as we go. Trust in God's word, not our emotions, not what's happening around us, but what God says, and stand on that. Let that be a foundation, and God will fulfill his every promise in your life. It is at his time and in his way. Just trust him with all of your heart.